But what about Cathie Wood?
XRP holders, the setup
Cathie
couldn't
Wood
be
is
bigger.
a billionaire, and Cathie Wood just said something huge about inflation. She speaked out, and we're going to be seeing what exactly happens next for XRP as well.
And if you've been watching Bitcoin, it's almost...
You know, it's been pretty crazy run for XRP, but for how long can it last? Let's check it out.
Been a leader in terms of risk on, risk off. So I think that's what we're seeing. We are more than halfway through a 4-year cycle. We think we're still in a bull market. If we're right,
so yeah, when is the bull market gonna be over? Because XRP already was at $3. People are saying it's gonna top at $4, but a lot of these billionaires are calling for $10 XRP. Could it take another 4 years before XRP comes back and it gets stronger?
Inflation is going to surprise on the low side of expectations. We wouldn't be surprised to see 2 or 3 cuts. Now, if you look at an indicator called Trueflation, it's probably the broadest measure of inflation out there. It is saying inflation is down to 1.65%, well below where the Fed is hitting it at roughly the CPI's 2.8%. And
so yeah, the ETF rate cuts are going to be the big game changer. But I feel like even a bigger game changer is going to be the ETFs. So the rate cuts are going to be the number 2, the ETFs are going to be the number 1, and the Clarity Act is probably going to be the number 3 if it passes the Senate. Maybe even number 2 because it's more important for XRP than Bitcoin.
We believe
because it allows the companies to literally buy XRP, like legally.
That the deregulation that we're seeing here in the United States is going to be very important to institutions moving into this new asset class.
Why is this important for XRP? Cathie Wood mentioned that big institutions are going into tokenization, and one of these huge players is BlackRock. So for a long time, Ripple has faced legal setbacks by the SEC. But now that that case is officially dismissed, it opens the floodgates. And XRP is getting integrated into several ETFs and is also getting incorporated into several banks for their payment system.
I think that the SEC did a very important thing.
I mean, it's been pretty clear that everybody wants to use Ripple at this point.
In declaring these meme coins not securities. What they essentially were saying is, we are not going to regulate them. And it's buyer beware. And so if I have one message for those listening who are buying meme coins, buyer beware. And I think the message is loud and clear from the regulators. What we think will happen is there will be some fearsome declines in the prices of some of these meme assets. And, you know, there's nothing like losing money for people to learn. And they'll learn that the SEC and regulators are not taking responsibility for these meme coins. I'd say this new world's going to be complicated. You know, when we hear Larry...
Yeah, that's the issue right now, is meme coins are potentially just going to be a stuff of the past. They're not going to survive, in my opinion. I feel like a lot of the money from meme coins, I could be totally wrong, guys. And again, I love meme coins, but I feel like a lot of this money from meme coins is going to be converted and sent into other coins like, you know, utility coins. I feel like that already happened.
Think of BlackRock saying he wants to tokenize everything. You know, it's big because it takes a lot to move the needle at BlackRock. So we're watching the tokenization movement very closely for our own purposes as well. We're looking for the winners in the digital wallet space. Most of us are not going to have many wallets. You can think about this in the same way you think about credit cards. Most of us don't have very many credit cards. So we're looking for those winners, and Bitcoin's trying to get into the game. But in terms of real utility, if you go to emerging markets...
Now, that's where Bitcoin doesn't really have real utility. That's what I'm worried about. It is store of value, but it's not really having any utility back to it, or it can't really be developed, as people are saying. This is where XRP Ripple could really win with this SEC case being dismissed. You know, like the global adoption is underway, guys. And that's what I'm super excited for.
And I know this is not this market, but you go to emerging markets where
Like development countries will have a use for XRP due to the low prices.
their currencies destroy purchasing power and wealth with massive devaluation. So it's really their policy leaders. They are using Bitcoin in particular, but also stable coins, which is effectively the dollar.
Very important. So XRP is getting adopted all around the world, and so is RLUSD. In just Africa, 13 countries have adopted XRP and also RLUSD. And the main reason as to why this is because of hyperinflation. Some of the countries that have adopted XRP in Africa have inflation rates that are 25% year over year. And
That's very true. And another thing that I want to say is Ripple literally partnered with countries, like governments. How many projects, especially in crypto, can do that? Not many, I can tell you. Not just with banks, but a lot of like first world, like second world developing countries have partnered with Ripple in some way. And Ripple couldn't really partner in the US because of the SEC lawsuit. I feel like a lot of these partnerships in the USA will now be finalized and can now finally be done. Like Ripple has like 5 different locations around the world. It's not just USA. I feel like that's a very big misconception when people say like USA, Ripple. It's not just that.
also, due to economic instability, it is just very hard for these countries to rely on their government. So they're transitioning to cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, but more specifically, XRP and RLUSD. And the main reason for this is because it allows for P2P transfers, so person to person. This allows them to not have their currency to get devalued and actually have a means of living.
One of the things we think is going on right now is, and Treasury Secretary Bessent today said he does not believe that we're going into a recession. We think we've been in a rolling recession.
We've been in a 3-year recession. It was pretty brutal. But now it's going to get recovered, and it's probably going to be seeing a better life. It's probably going to be seeing like a more lively potential, and the future recessions are going to be much less worse.
And that we are actually going to see some negative quarters here. And that's because the velocity of money is collapsing as people, the labor force is worried that, and we're talking about federal, state, and local, quasi-government categories like education and healthcare. There's a lot of fear around job security right now. So we see the saving rate going up. We see the velocity of money coming down, and we do think we'll see 1 or 2 negative quarters. What we believe that will do is set this administration up and the Fed up with more degrees of freedom for tax cuts and perhaps lower interest rates, or at least ending quantitative tightening. If we're right, and inflation is going to surprise on the low side of expectations, we wouldn't be surprised to see 2 or 3 cuts. Now, if you look at an indicator called Trueflation, it's probably the broadest measure of inflation out there. It is saying inflation is down to 1.65%, well below where the Fed is pinning it at roughly the CPI's 2.8%. And we believe that the combination of actually food prices have started coming down, even egg prices.
So yeah, she's calling for the end of recession, basically.
Have started to collapse, as a matter of fact. Gasoline prices are coming down. We're seeing some rent prices coming down. So we think inflation is going to surprise on the low side of expectations for those reasons, and because innovation is inherently deflationary. And our 5 innovation platforms are all driving different kinds of deflation. Good deflation, which we'll call unit growth, but deflation nonetheless. So we think the Fed is going to have many more degrees of freedom in the second half of this year.
So I feel like she's just calling the markets are more productive, which is very true. A lot of these markets are doubling down, basically, and they're going for it. They really know what's going on. They're getting like more and more. Meme coins will die, XRP will survive. This is the clip I wanted to show you guys because I've been saying meme coins will not survive 2025. I could be totally wrong, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. I hope everyone survives. But again, seems like a lot of this money is exchanging.
The environment we have been in. Our view on meme coins, we're not as focused on them. We would not be putting them into our various private funds. Because, and I think that, the combination of AI and blockchain technology is creating millions of these meme coins. We think most of them are not going to be worth very much. We think there are just going to be a few crypto assets that will gain most of the spoils in the entire ecosystem.
So Cathie Wood is a huge advocate for both Bitcoin, Ethereum, and also Solana. Now, one thing that has held her back from mentioning XRP is, of course, the overlooming SEC case. But now that is dismissed. And there's also a lot of NDAs that were signed, and as a result, powerful asset managers were not able to mention XRP. She mentioned that the majority of cryptocurrencies, specifically meme coins, are not going to last. And that is the truth.
I totally agree with that. I also feel like a lot of these NDAs are going to be revealed years later down the line, maybe 1 to 3 years later, before we even see anything at this point.
If you don't have underlying fundamentals and actual good tokenomics, you are not going to last in the cryptocurrency market. But XRP is well established, and it has all the legal framework that it needs to be a massive competitor in the cryptocurrency space.
The dollar as backstops to their purchasing power and wealth, because they've been through too many of these devaluations. So I think the real utility, if you're looking at stable coins and Bitcoin today, is in the emerging markets, really protecting consumers' purchasing power.
So yeah, on one side, I don't feel like we're gonna hit 2022 recession, but it is possible that we still enter like a bearish market. Now, how big this bearish market is, I feel like nobody knows. But that's the issue right now. We could still be entering a bad market in 2026, while like this year right now, there's no indicator that this will be bad for crypto. So yeah. This year, definitely looking good. Everything is going down. She's not focused on meme coins, which I don't feel like any billionaire is. But they are talking about utility and tech. That's what I like. I feel like another 4 years we have to wait. And again, 4 years will come by fast. And then we can actually see XRP do like a very huge rally where it has like a lot of the stuff being built. It didn't expect this type of pump in 2024.
Well,
so all things considered, Cathie Woods believes that we are destined for a super cycle. And she also believes that a lot of institutional investors are ready to jump into cryptocurrency. And this is going to have massive impacts on XRP. Because we know for a long time, a lot of big banks did not want to invest into XRP because of the SEC case that was overlooming. But there are several things that have happened in a very short span of time. We had the Genius Bill get passed. The SEC dropped their case against Ripple. And several spot ETFs get passed to the SEC for further review. And these spot XRP ETFs are very likely to go through because a new administration is heavily backing crypto and specifically XRP. Also, make sure...
I mean, utility is really the way of the game. We can see NVIDIA stocks. I don't see meme coins being like the big thing anymore for that matter. It's the problem is there's so much competition in the crypto markets. And guess what? They're going to be focusing on other stuff. They're going to be focusing on basically utility. If you can buy something with utility and something without utility, of course, you will be buying the utility itself. So yeah, very big difference for anyone involved. But we have been seeing, so much use here. Like Ripple CEO admitted they'll start using